Script: The Hidden Origins of Easter, Pastor Questions Modern Traditions. Opening hook. Every year, millions of Christians around the world celebrate Easter, church services, family gatherings, egg hunts, and candy-filled baskets. But some pastors believe the modern celebration looks very different from the biblical account of the resurrection. Pastor G. Craig Lewis argues that many Easter traditions may actually come from ancient pagan customs rather than the teachings of Scripture, and in his message, he challenges believers to examine the origins of the holiday they celebrate. Section 1. The Question of Easter's Origins. According to Lewis, the word Easter may trace back to ancient fertility traditions. Some historians connect the term to figures such as Ishtar, a goddess associated with fertility and springtime in ancient Mesopotamian cultures. Lewis explains that many spring festivals throughout ancient civilizations celebrated renewal, fertility, and the return of the sun after winter. Over time, some of these cultural traditions became intertwined with Christian celebrations. Lewis argues that this blending may have introduced symbols and practices that were never originally part of biblical teachings about the resurrection. Section 2. Symbols and Traditions. Lewis points specifically to traditions such as colored eggs and rabbits. These symbols are often associated with fertility and new life, common themes in ancient seasonal festivals. The Easter bunny and decorated eggs are now widely recognized cultural symbols of the holiday, but Lewis suggests that their origins may come from older mythological traditions tied to fertility celebrations and sun worship. For him, this raises an important question for believers. Should cultural traditions be separated from religious meaning? Or should they be carefully examined before being incorporated into worship practices? Section 3. Catholic Influence on Protestant Traditions. Lewis also discusses the historical relationship between Protestantism and the Catholic Church. He argues that some Protestant churches have inherited traditions that developed within medieval Catholic practices. According to Lewis, certain holidays and rituals may have been shaped by attempts to blend Christian teaching with existing cultural customs. This process, he says, sometimes created hybrid traditions that mix biblical beliefs with practices that originated outside the early church. For Lewis, understanding history helps believers evaluate which traditions align with Scripture and which may need reconsideration. Section 4. The Debate over Sunrise Services, Another Practice. Lewis questions is the popular Easter sunrise service. Many churches hold early morning gatherings to commemorate the moment when the resurrection was discovered. However, Lewis argues that the Bible describes the women arriving at the tomb after the sun had already risen. Because of this, he suggests that sunrise services may symbolically resemble older rituals that honored the rising sun. For Lewis, this does not necessarily mean believers intend to participate in pagan worship, but it highlights how cultural traditions can evolve over time. Section 5. Returning to the core message. Despite his criticisms of certain traditions, Lewis emphasizes that the central message of the season remains extremely important. For Christians, the resurrection of Jesus Christ represents the foundation of the faith. It symbolizes victory over death, forgiveness of sin, and the promise of salvation. Lewis encourages believers to focus less on cultural symbols and more on the spiritual meaning behind the resurrection. For him, the most important celebration is not about eggs, rabbits, or seasonal traditions. It is about the message of redemption. Closing reflection. Debates about the origins of holidays like Easter have existed for centuries. Some scholars emphasize historical cultural influences. Others focus on the spiritual meaning that believers attach to the celebration today. Pastor Lewis's message invites Christians to reflect on an important question. Are traditions simply harmless cultural expressions, or should believers carefully examine where those traditions come from? Regardless of the answer, one truth remains central to Christian faith. The story of the resurrection continues to inspire millions of people around the world, and for many believers, that message of hope is the true reason for the celebration.